I'll be asking the panel when they're here. David? Yep, when they're here to introduce themselves and their role in the knowledge sharing within the Soil CRC. Hanabeth is going to explain, this is a different project that she's involved in, not the social benchmarking, is going to explain the project a little bit. And then I'll ask the panel to tell us about what they're learning, what's exciting them, what they want you to know about knowledge sharing in the Soil CRC. So, and then you'll have your chance to ask them questions. I will briefly say that we're talking about knowledge sharing very deliberately. We've been doing work on adoption, and I can see Vaughan at the back. If you could stand up too, Vaughan, important part of our team. Early work on adoption and adoptability, really useful work, but probably helped us understand that it's bigger than the S-curve. It's bigger than going from A to B and seeing how many people do it. It is about co-creation of knowledge, and that's what this this project is about. And I'll let you talk about it. How about that? But first of all, if we could introduce from David across.
I'm David Davenport. Yeah, I've obviously been around a while in this sphere. I started work in extension as a soil extension officer last century, so it goes to show just how old I am. And it's interesting because whenever I meet some of the farmers I've worked with over years, the first thing they say is, haven't you retired yet? But I've kind of come to the conclusion that soil scientists don't retire, just gradually erode away. So I'm definitely eroding. So I've started from the top down. So anyway, I guess I did start as an extension officer, but then to support extension, I started to do field research. Now that's a bit of a heresy for most of you researchers who sort of think extension's something you add on at the end of a research proposal because that's how you get some funding. But the bottom line was I actually saw it as a way for farmer engagement. So for the last 20 odd years, 30 years, I've been working extensively with farmer groups, and currently I've been working with Eyre. So Eyre Peninsula is an area, agriculture area is about the size of Tasmania, and Eyre is the peak farming system group on Eyre Peninsula. They have a huge staff of 3.5 FTE to cover that whole area. They get overwhelming state government department support. When I started there was about 20-25 extension, agronomy, soils, etc. Now there's one. So obviously we work a lot more with the private advisors and other groups. So I think it just shows how things are changing, and we need to think about extension and how we do it well.
Thanks. Thanks, David. So I'm at Southern Cross. I'm a senior lecturer at Southern Cross University in the Faculty of Science and Engineering. And I was trained in environmental science in my undergrad, but I was and always have been very interested in why people often ignore the best science and research. So I stepped into the social research space and I've been working there ever since. And what really interests me and drives me in the work that I do is trying to support rural communities, rural and regional communities and farming to become more resilient and have more capacity to respond and to the shocks and knocks of climate, economy, and all sorts of other factors. So yeah, that's why it's such a privilege to be leading some of these projects and working with all of you wonderful folk here.
And you're the leader of the knowledge sharing project?
Yes, I lead the knowledge sharing project and the social benchmarking project, yes.
I'd say that I'm probably the most or the least familiar face out of anyone up here, esteemed colleagues, but I'm Simon Krueger. I'm the Project Communications Officer at the West Midlands Group. So I guess my capacity here is as a representative of the grower groups that are associated with the knowledge sharing project. And so, yeah, I'm here to provide that capacity, I guess.
So how many other groups are in the project?
So I can see Kelly's here at the moment, so BCG are there. I can see Josh at the back there, who is from Eyre EP, and then there's Central West Farming Systems also amongst the project as well. So they are familiar faces, so I'm spotting them out now to keep me kind of a little bit grounded. So yeah, it's a pleasure to work with those guys already.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Felicity Harp. I'm the Soil CRC knowledge broker, and I kick-started my research and extension career with the birch cropping demonstration site. So I have a soft spot for the farming systems groups and have intimate understanding of the challenges and opportunities that bestow the farming systems groups. So I'll be working with Soil CRC to help share the knowledge of the Soil CRC, and that's a big job, which I'm looking forward to. And working closely with our participants and the farming systems groups to take advantage of the networks and channels, communication channels that you have established, and work towards sharing that knowledge over the coming years.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of this panel. Because really, it's mainly about the knowledge sharing project, but it goes beyond that, obviously. Hanabeth, could you briefly explain what the knowledge sharing project is doing and how it operates, and then we can go into what's great about it.
Sure. So the project is, we're working with the grower groups to determine, well, what are their priorities? What are the topics they want to engage people with? What are those stakeholders, and how can we effectively engage with those particular groups? And each group's got different priorities. So over the last couple of years now, we've sort of developed these resources. So every time they try something new or they run an event, the grower groups will fill in a reflective diary about how that event went, who's turning up, how did it go, a bit of a SWOT analysis. And we're getting people who are attending those events to fill in evaluation forms as well. So on how the event went, whether they're likely to change practices as a result of it. So we're looking at, we're actually measuring and monitoring the knowledge sharing processes and engagement, whether it's face-to-face, workshops, webinars, whether it's trying something new on Twitter. We're collecting a lot of data about what they're doing and how it's working. So that's in a nutshell, to try and get an understanding. But it's also about a lot of conversations, right? We meet every month, and then you guys asked to meet twice a month for quite a long time there.
We added more opportunities. We like talking a little bit. Obviously, coming from an extension and communication perspective, we started off with just the monthly meetings, I think, and that was a bit more structured and stuff. But then I guess what was exciting for me straight away was the opportunity. I'm obviously pretty fresh to my job. I've been there for just under 2 years now. And I come from 13 years of being a chef. So a few of the slides got lost to me today, I'll be entirely honest, but that's okay. But it was just such a good opportunity for me to learn from the likes of Josh and Kelly and BCG, and to be able to kind of share and bounce those ideas off and understand, what's working for them can also work for me, or maybe I can tweak it a little bit and work it, to work for our group and our farms at the same time. So yeah, we ended up adding another fortnightly meeting to that, just so we had the opportunity to really chat as grower groups without having like an overarching theme, but just really talk about what we're doing.
Can I just pause you there for a minute? They actually asked for an extra meeting a month. That shows how valuable the conversations are, I think. It's not about ticking the box, but you were saying it's because you wanted to keep those conversations going. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been so nice, because it's not about just people in their region just trying stuff. They're sharing everything that they're trying that's got working really well, and the failures, and they're learning from each other and getting inspired, and it's sort of, I think, generated a lot more sort of energy for everyone to take forward and try new things.
Yeah. So for the three of you who are in that project, you've told us a little bit. Simon started early because he's so excited. But I would like you to reflect on what is exciting or worrying you, and then we'll come to Felicity in a sort of broader sense from the soil from the Soil CRC. But you can build on what you were talking about, if you like, Simon, or other things which are exciting you about what's happening in this project for you and others.
I guess you're going to get used to hearing me talk. I suppose it's like the meetings that we have. I mean, talk to Josh or Kelly. They can contest to my ability to just keep talking. But I guess another thing that was really exciting for me, and this is coming to, I guess, synthesis now, is the last couple of meetings we're really talking about something that's going to come out at the end of this project. So we're talking about like a proper guide with proper case studies and stuff in there that's applicable not just for grower groups and how we can get our information out there and what works for us, but more so for researchers. And that's the most exciting and important thing for me, is that there's an understanding that we're going to have something at the end of this that we can give to researchers and stuff that's going to help inform their research and have knowledge sharing and the idea of adoption centre front and right at the beginning of the research process, to understand that right at the end, if we're going to want some really good outcomes from whatever research we're doing, we really need to think about the farmers and the end users straight away.
Okay, so I think one of the real values in this project is actually getting people like Hanabeth coming out to the regions and talking to the groups, asking them what their needs are and how do they get around it. Now, you know, there's some additional benefits like the oysters at Streaky Bay or something, but yes, but the thing is just that two-way engagement, and then you extend that so that you've got a network of groups talking to each other, I think is a very valuable exercise, because often groups actually are competitors, particularly in funding circles. So it's really good to see groups actually aiding each other, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and there's great value in sharing experiences and benefits. And I guess the one thing which we talked about the other day, and was the question for me, is that these guys now have a lot of really good information and data about the challenges facing groups and ways to engage with farmers. Where does it go from here? And how can we start to influence researchers? Because I'm sure there's still a lot of researchers out there who consider extension complete if they attend a field day and then hand out a glossy field day brochure, and that's it. They think that's extension. And they really struggle to pick the difference between communication and extension, because communication's a part of extension, but it's not all of it.
Yeah, so we talk about that a lot at the meetings in terms of, you know, who are the different people that you want to engage, and not everyone's going to engage in the same way. For example, even, you know, you think of your different groups. Yes, you've got different types of farmers and quite different types of farmers and across regions, but also you've got groups like younger farmers, older farmers, women farmers. And so we've had a lot of discussions about how to engage them particularly. And, you know, one particular farmer might really love your REP, you know, the report that comes out at the end of the year, and they're going to really engage with that. And others are going to just love the podcast on their tractors, especially the younger farmers. So a lot of conversation about that.
Yeah, I would say like one of the big things for us as well, and I thank Nathan for this, obviously, is the ability to test things out. And as part of the project, we've been able to do that as well, which has been fantastic. So it's about having a go at maybe something that's a little bit new, like streaming a seasonal updates or something along those lines as part of the project, and seeing how that works and getting the learnings from that. One thing I will say is one of the biggest learnings for me as well is about you know, tailoring the language that you use when you talk to different audiences. So and also the materials or the methods that you use to do that. Like we had a discussion the other day about as much as everyone loves podcasts, and it does get thrown around as an opportunity for, you know, extension, sometimes knowing the audience and thinking about the language, it's like maybe it's not the right medium to talk about something very specific, or you wouldn't sit down and listen to a podcast to get a, you know, to understand how to cook the best steak, so something quite complex. So having the project give us the opportunity to try those different things out, it's kind of really helped along the line for us to understand like what the best language is when you're talking to farmers or to different groups and audiences, and understanding how you can tailor the way you talk about things and what medium to use to make it, give it the most impact.
And I think adding to that, Simon, is that we've also discussed that it's really important for researchers to identify, are they good extension providers? Because in a lot of research projects, you bring in specialists for specialist roles for statistics or whatever it is, but very rarely do you bring in an extension expert, because most researchers think that, yeah, I can stand up at a field day, or I can do this or that. But the reality is that that should be built in at the start of a project. And you should be looking at sourcing who are good farmer extension providers, including within the groups. And that, I think, has been one of the beauties of the CRC, is actually getting those groups to talk to the researchers, not just about their research needs, but how those research findings are put out there. And I think that's going to be a challenge for the next few years.
Yep. I think that's an excellent time to ask Felicity to broaden, you know, what are you learning? What are you excited about with the opportunities for knowledge sharing in the Soil CRC?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. We had a fantastic opportunity this morning to meet with the grower group representatives here at the conference, which was really valuable to get some insights from them around some of the challenges and opportunities they see with my role in supporting them. So, and I was really excited that they were excited about it, and thanks, David, for your support in that space. But I know that there are lots of competing areas that grower groups and NRM organisations have to deal with. Soil CRC is, one collaborator in a whole host of collaborators that you guys work with. So having me on board to be able to be a conduit for you to the researchers and vice versa, backwards and forwards, and be able to understand the grower group needs and their landholder needs for specific regional specific information and how you would like that delivered, and for me to be able to have conversations with the researchers and link you up with those researchers and identifying the good communicators and work at that two-way, not just pushing information out to the grower groups, but feeding grower group information back to the researchers about how they want to receive information, how it should be communicated, and those sort of issues. So very excited about those sort of opportunities, and hopefully delivering some efficiencies in that area, for the researchers, because they're strapped for time, and Soil CRC is one funding body that they probably deal with a number of funding areas. So, there's efficiencies to be delivered in both areas in that space where I can help and, facilitate the two-way flow of information, make sure the information you're receiving has practical applications and relevance to your regions, support in that way.
Changing topic slightly, not a lot though. We've been talking knowledge sharing. At the last 2 days at the conference, we've talked a lot about adoption. What do you say? But we haven't talked a lot about learning, and I think that's part of what I've been seeing in your knowledge sharing. So if the four of you could think about that relationship between, what are you aiming to often with your knowledge sharing? What are you trying to get to? I guess I might start with Hanabeth, since it's her project.
Well, look, yes, of course, adoption is an important part of it. There's no doubt, you want people to be implementing good practices. But what we found in the social benchmarking studies is that, there's things that hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on, like precision farming and different soil testing techniques, and you've still got in some areas, say, in the Wimmera survey, only 23% of farmers are doing annual testing. So you've still got some very, just of their soil, sorry. So even in some very basic things, you still have quite low adoption rates. And precision farming, it varies enormously across states. WA, they're a little bit higher, the big tech. They love the big tech over there. So there is that. But certainly what I love about this project is that it builds on a lot of the work that was already done. So it builds on the surveys, builds on adoptability work that he did in the previous project. We're connecting him with the policy, with the digital engagement. And it's making me look back to the data here and start thinking about new ways to look at it, because certainly we're finding that people sometimes actually just know nothing about what you've done. They literally have no knowledge. So there's this process of not knowing anything, and then they hear about it the first time, might be on the radio or from a friend or whatever it is. And then over time, more and more conversations, or call them touch points, don't we, in the project. There's different ways that people are learning and gathering information about this same thing. And that helps over time, potentially, to build confidence in that. And ultimately, they're either then going to see that evidence of local success next door, or they're going to hear it, and actually a lot of farmers are just as likely to adopt something or feel confident if they hear it in a podcast from someone that they really relate to as well. So that's popping out. It's really interesting. So it also comes down to who you're making decisions with in the team. So some farmers do make decisions in isolation, but most don't. And I look back at the Soil CRC survey data, and I'm now finding that the decision-making team is actually a major driver of productivity. That's what the data's suggesting, certainly in the Wimmera one. I want to scale that up and start to really look at that more closely. But so knowledge sharing is a complex process. It's not a one-way linear step thing. It's about, you got to obviously know about it, then you've got to have the conversations and build the confidence. That reduces the perceptions of risk. Then it's about whether you can afford to do it or not, and all those other constraints. And ultimately, then you might be able to consider looking at adoption. So it's
So learning comes in there at all of those points, doesn't it? So David, then Simon, then Felicity on that.
I'd just like to build a little bit on that, because adoption really requires three fundamentals. Firstly, there's a need or a desire to change. Secondly, there's the trust in the information or the technology or whatever they're looking to change to. But thirdly, there's confidence. And that's something which we often undersell. Farmers need to have the confidence what they're going to be able to do, that A, they can do it, but B, it's going to be beneficial and it's going to deliver what they're looking for. So one of the beauties about this knowledge sharing project is, and which is what I really hope researchers will not dismiss but actually have a good look at, is that there are ways and means to approach farming communities to assist in sharing that knowledge to give that confidence. So, even scheduling workshops, a number of times I've had somebody from Adelaide or interstate say, we need to run a workshop on this, or we need to deliver some results. We're coming, on such and such a day. Can you please have a group ready for us to present to? And I'm sure most farming system groups have had the same thing. I can see Kelly smiling away there. But the point is, there are times when farmers just do not want to know you. No matter what you're going to offer them, they just don't want to know. So talk to your farming system group, firstly to find out what are the farmers' needs. What do they actually want this or not? Secondly, is the person coming to present them to them trusted? And if not, how can you develop that trust before you get there? And the third thing is confidence. Whatever you present has got to be either validated or in a format which farmers can understand, which they can trust, and then they'll take it on board. But if you don't tick those three boxes, you're really pushing uphill.
Simon?
I guess mine's not going to be as succinct as that. That was beautiful, but I guess as a practical example for us of like the continual learning process, that's not necessarily going to lead to adoption straight away, but they're all definitely like little spots moving towards the right goal of adoption. Is something like the pasture walk series that we did, where I guess it's not led, we don't place ourselves as the hero in that scenario. We place ourselves as a guide, I guess. And so all we're doing is organising a series of farmers that are interested. Like, it's only 10 people. It wasn't large, to come to another farmer's property that's doing something that's adjacent to what we want as the end result. So it was full rotational grazing of perennial pastures. And so the concept was get the farmers there, anyone that's interested, doesn't have to be a large number or anything, and then have the farmer themselves go around their property and just talk about what was working and not working. And then from there, we don't, as a grower group, we don't stand up and do any presentations or anything along those lines. All we do is act as a facilitator in that role and get them in the room, get them into the paddock, and you go around and you do that. And then that grew steadily by first 10 farmers, and then we did another one a couple of months later, 3 months later, and then another 10 farmers, because there's the guys that are there are learning, but not only that, they're sharing with their own networks. They didn't need us to be there to tell them, we need to have 40 people here and this is our goal. We knew that over a period of time, it was going to naturally grow because they're all learning with each other. And not only that, they're going out from 10 farmers and then they're going to talk to their friends and say, come along, this was an interesting and worthwhile exercise. There's no pressure. We've got another 10, 20 farmers, and it grows organically. And that's everyone's learning bit by bit by bit. And then right at the end of the project, which I know if you want to talk to Melanie about it, you can, who's my offsider over there, we had some really good goals because the area that we were working with, the people we were working with, understood the rotational grazing system without a whole heap of input from us. And they'd done that organically. They'd done it by themselves by getting together, talking about what was working and learning bit by bit and sharing their knowledge amongst each other.
Thanks. But you guys were also there to make sure that it was still good, sound, evidence-based knowledge as well. But I just
really quickly, because
very quickly, sorry. Just to say, the amount of work that went into getting people there, having a really good flyer, a really good value proposition to get people to the event was a really good part of what you did as well. And a really interesting learning, I think, from the project, just how important it is for people to know why they're going to an event and what's going to be offered there.
I guess a big thing that I missed out as well, again, put me on the spot, but is we kind of, in the second and third ones, we almost seeded a researcher and an industry person in there, just letting them know that they weren't there to talk or present or give their opinion, but rather to understand the group of people that they're just, at the end of the project, they're going to be presenting and wanting the uptake of of that rotational grazing project. And that worked particularly well.
Thanks. Quickly, Felicity, and then we probably have time for one or two questions.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, it will depend on the research that we're, outcomes that we're wanting to share with the community. And so there may be some general information that needs to be shared in regards to the outcomes, or there may be very specific things that we want landholders to do or that we want to share with grower groups so that we can build the capacity of grower group members and officers to then perhaps train the trainer. So, if there are decision support tools that have been developed or the new innovative technologies that have been developed, then the grower group members and perhaps advisors or agronomist consultants may be the target for training them up to then take them out as a trusted advisor out to the community to assist with that uptake, like David was saying about building trust. Let's use those, have that trust and to help support adoption and uptake of practices where relevant.
Was there a question from the floor? We only have time for one. Peter?
Just curious about how you're going to knowledge. If you think about data to information to knowledge to wisdom, how do you make knowledge so that it doesn't get lost at the end of the project, all these troubles to share it? But how does the new farmer coming in connect into that knowledge?
I might just ask Felicity to answer that because I am getting the wind up.
Yeah,
So,
that's
good question.
Yep, perfect question, Pete, and that's what I'll be working on over the next couple of years, and working with our communications manager as well. And again, that will depend on what it is, the information that we're after. So if it's a decision support tool, there might be a widget that needs to be stored, accessible, findable, somewhere, and whether that's on the Soil CRC website or somewhere else. But that's certainly something that we'll be putting in planning for over the next coming years.
Okay.
And just, can I say one thing very
Say
quickly?
one thing, quick.
There will be a whole bunch of resources that are coming out of this project, so keep your eyes on the
true.
Soil CRC website for the knowledge sharing guide and all sorts of different resources. Thanks.
Yep. And keep an eye on these people who you can see have a huge amount of experience, stretching back centuries. But talk with this group and give them a round of applause.